So last week we started the process. We have a new SWAT medic selection that will be starting in September. So we've started the process now. We have to start the process this far out because the candidates from fire need to be hireable by the police department. So that's obviously a long process. So what we do is first we have 3 orientation days, 3 meetings. The reason we have 3 days is so that we can capture everybody on the 3 different fire shifts, A, B, and C. So that there's no reason that nobody was able to attend. So a memo was out to the whole department. If you're interested, these are the dates of the meetings. Come in and have your questions answered, because obviously this program is like no other in the fire service. It's probably, with all the training, the longest program, even longer than air rescue, because you have the initial hiring personal history questionnaire that gets turned in, has to be turned in within a certain amount of time, and then they start the hiring process, background, polygraph, psychological, and then if the person is successful through all of those, a medical, and then they're hireable. And then once they're hireable, then we can put them through the 3-week SWAT medic selection. And the reason we're doing it that way was because how we used to do it, and caught us one time, and then we pivoted. Was we sent out, so the first TAC med school that we did, which was all firefighters, they were all fire medics, was back in 2019, and we put out the memo saying whoever's interested, all they had to do was a tryout. And then once they did the tryout, they made the tryout, which was all the physical aspects and on the firearms range. Once they pass the tryouts, they can go into the school. And that was great. They passed the school, but they were doing the hiring process alongside right before the school. So what happens is they spend 3 weeks of, because they have to secure their own time. They have to get their own vacation time or do swaps or whatever to attend the 3-week school. The academy portion, the 13-week auxiliary academy portion, that one is they're put on a 40-hour and paid for, but the 3 weeks of the school is not. So then what happens? They go through the school, and then you find out, somebody had something in their past that had never come up, and then they're out. So that was a waste of time. So, but that school. We learned a lot. We learn with every school. We learn with every iteration how to improve the product, right? So that school went like that. They went to the SWAT school. We found out a bunch of guys weren't able to continue, and then they went to. Back then, it was a 12-week auxiliary academy, and then once they passed the auxiliary academy, they took the state test. Then they were deemed operational and put on a rotation list to come to the unit. But now we've switched that now. So obviously we learned, let's get them hired first, and then they can, spend their time wisely and get 3 weeks off to get the beat down, the medical beat down. And then that school was, like I said, all medics, all fire medics, no cops in it. And yeah, it was all medical. And, obviously we have the SWAT officers come and teach tactics. And then we put on the medical component, and we kind of marry them in the middle, organic to what we do. So we did have medics from another agency in that school, and they kind of learned how we did it. So, but we have from day one made the school, very organic to what we do. If the guys never worked on a helicopter, never called air rescue, never set up a patient in a Stokes basket or prepared somebody in the PEP device to be extracted or on an airboat, things like that. They're going to do it in the school because that's stuff that we do and we've done and we they actually called out for once that they were in the woods and they needed a patient extracted, and I was not detached at the time, and I came in as the flight medic on the hook that day, and they lowered me down and I packaged the patient in the Stokes basket and came up barrelman with him. And that was so anyway, that first school we did it that way. And then we I think we had like 13 people in that school. Then the next one we were only able to get, I think, 4 cats past everything, the hiring process, the tryouts, and then 2 guys tapped out like the first day, and we were left with 2. So what's that saying? Necessity is the mother of all invention, or something like that. Can't necessity is the mother, root of all. Can't remember what the saying is. If you remember it, let me know. But because we only had the 2, now it was 2 guys in the school with a bunch of cops. So we had an incident a while back where one of our guys that was deployed had been pulled to work with another unit on it was a large holiday weekend, and they were doing something, and there was a shooting, and he was treating somebody, and his hands were full of the red stuff, and he's asking for somebody to grab something out of his bag, and they're looking like, he's got something growing out of his forehead, and so we kind of learned from that one. So since we only had the 2 guys in the class, now what we did was say, okay, well, you're going to lean on the rest of the guys in the class since there's only 2 of you, and we kind of catered the scenarios to where we would just we would relive that scenario, right? So we made the one medic, and he'd have to lean on the team to because everybody's not gonna have work in a structure unless it's a humongous structure, and then we would have more medics. So if we're just in your run of the mill, office complex or something like that, and the medic needed help, he'd have to obviously train the guys in the class. So we tell them, like, just like you would here when you get to the unit, you're going to train the guys in your team on what you carry in your bag, because that's going to come into play one day when your hands are full of blood and you can't get to something, and there's not a clean medic to be there to talk on the radio. You need somebody, you need to delegate, you need to tell somebody, hey, grab me the TXA, or grab me a crack kit, or grab me a empty, whatever. You get the picture. So that we did that. That's cool, man. That worked out great. So we were like, okay, we told them. So I told them at any given point I could pull something out of your training aid bag, and you're going to turn around and teach it to the class, to the cops, because you're going to need them later on in the school, and we're gonna make sure all the scenarios go down that road. And that's how we've been doing it, and that's worked out great. That method of having the medics train the guys who eventually, ultimately, they're going to work with in the unit together when they come back, detached to the unit, and those guys are here, those guys, and then obviously there's a continual thing. I train with my guys on my team, the guys on the other 3 teams do, and then we'll do a unit thing together every so often. We have 40 dudes in the unit, so it's like our lieutenant says, wrangling cats.